Hey guys, I'm Richard Fitzgerald. This is Dubai Works, where we interview the business leaders making a difference in this great city.
That business with scale mobility was very interesting to me.
I like building something that has legacy.
Welcome to another episode of Dubai Works Business Podcast. Firstly, this show is powered by Zbooni. The Zbooni app gives businesses free tools to start and run and grow online, accept payments, build e-store, and create mobile invoices in minutes. While the interview is brought to you by Zbooni, the guest stories told are their own. This week, we have another conversation around cybersecurity and a global, well-established company. We're joined by Stephan Berner, the CEO of Help AG, the cybersecurity arm of Qتصاد Digital. Stephan established the Help AG ME in 2004 and has overseen the company's phenomenal growth to date. Today is helping Help AG to further increase the organization's investment and business activity and partnerships across the MENA region. Initially working for Help AG in Germany, he went on to establish Help AG Middle East with a primary objective of servicing the information security and IT infrastructure market, specifically for the corporate enterprise and government sectors in the region. Today on the show, we'll be talking about Help AG, cybersecurity in 2001, and how COVID-19 has impacted the sector. And lastly, what does the future look like, both for Help AG and cybersecurity? So good afternoon, Stephan or Stephan?
You can call me Stephan.
Stephan, sorry about that. Yeah, okay. Exactly. Nice to speak to you. Nice to meet you. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. Pleasure to be on the show. And of course, talking about cybersecurity, it's always a very delightful topic because it's becoming more and more important for businesses, but also for corporate enterprise government, but as well for citizens within the countries itself.
Absolutely. It's quite a hot topic as well. And you're the CEO of the cybersecurity arm of the National Telecommunications Company of the UAE. That is a big job. It sounds like a big job. What does it involve?
Yeah, maybe to start off with, maybe I'll give you a background a little bit about Help AG, when we started, how does the landscape look like, and what kind of paradigm shifts have we seen throughout the last 2 centuries. Help AG as an organization, when we established ourselves in 2004 in Dubai, was a relatively immature market. So cybersecurity was not really part of a thought process within most of the organizations within the country. And over the years, because we have seen a tremendous shift, because nowadays everything is webified, it's amplified, it's cloudified. And I mean, it's fair to say that we finally reached to live in the digital age. And accordingly, cybersecurity, where everything will be connected somewhere, somehow, is absolutely a top topic, because you want to make sure that your confidential information, whether it's business related or private related, will be not compromised by the wrong people.
So what was the world of cybersecurity like when you set up Help AG in the Middle East in 2004 compared to today?
Yeah, so back then, I mean, cybersecurity was a niche in a niche. So you had an IT organization, you had a responsible person overseeing everything from network to systems to storage to client server to furniture. And there was this little thing called security. And it was considered more a burden than anything else, because yes, organizations were deciding, because of compliance reasons, eventually to buy a firewall product which they're going to plug in, but it never really have been configured in a way to supporting the business. And where it used to be a nice to have, it became a must have, and nowadays it's one of the most important topics within each and every board meeting within the largest organizations around the world. Why? Because cybersecurity, if you're going to look, especially in the region where we used to say oil is a very important asset, a resource to the region, nowadays we say data became the new oil, because whatever you can do with it, with it is extremely powerful, and accordingly, of course, it needs to be looked after. It needs to be utilized in a way which is going to provide benefits to governments, to organizations, throughout the entire ecosystem. Interesting.
So, yeah, people refer to this economist's front page when the headline that you quoted came from that, and we'll touch on data in a bit more detail. But from just interested in the kind of requirement and how people realized it was more important. You mentioned that it became from a nice to have to a must have, and people will identify and resonate with the words you mentioned, like compliance. So it's almost like it almost was a tick box in the past. Are we doing that thing over there? Do we have a provider for it? And to get things through, companies might have to have a cybersecurity solution that might have, as you mentioned, sat with the IT department, or might have been a software that people plugged in. What was the service that you initially had? Did you work with IT teams, or did you work with the wider organization as well? And how did you help companies at the time?
Yeah, so let's describe it from both ways. So when we started, it was Mr. Christian and myself. We were the founders of the organization. And then as a two-man army, we were trying to convince the market that there is something called cybersecurity, which need to be taken much, much more serious. And as we went along the line, we have seen typically that where organizations were buying a point product, 5 years later, they were acquiring a solution, means integrating different kinds of products. And then that solution need to be managed, which nowadays we talk about a managed security service, where we as Help AG take care of the entire cybersecurity requirements of financial institutions, for instance, within the UAE or in Saudi Arabia. And as we started to be two people focusing on basic things, and it became more and more sophisticated, today we have about 230 cybersecurity specialists only in the UAE, looking after those organizations and helping them to increase their security posture. And then I think the other interesting aspect, of course, that if you on one hand have a local market, like talking about regulations and requirements and standards, 10, 15 years ago, the only standard which was available within the UAE or even in Saudi Arabia and other countries in the region was an ISO standard called ISO 27001, which describes the information security management system. And based on this, organization were requested to look after policy, procedures, and processes. As per the findings, of course, we're going to make sure to put something more mature in place. Nowadays, we have local standard and requirements which has been established by the local government authorities, where we're going to use the best from the ISO standard, we're combining this standard and looking into specific requirements from within in the region. And this has been compiled, and every government organization has to comply with this kind of cybersecurity standard as of today. This 15 years ago didn't exist.
Okay.
Now the government, of course, they having a very important role to help to make it more mature, and that's why those frameworks has been published, established, and this is where organization has to comply with. And our role, of course, is as a cybersecurity advisor, to going out to government entities, whether it's local or federal entities, and helping them to become more mature and focusing on those specific areres. And I think that's a very good thing, because it's going to make sure that the basics and based on a phased approach will be taken care of.
Okay, interesting. From a proprietary technology point of view or an offering, what makes Help AG different to the other providers in the market?
I mean, it's fair to say trying to be as much objective as possible, of course.
Yeah.
I think it's what is fair to say is, if you look into cybersecurity, it's on one hand we talk about zero trust security, and on the other side it's a day zero job. And you can only do this by having the right capabilities in regards to the service and technology stack you're offering to your clients, and having the capabilities the capacity of resources who are actually able to deliver it. And if you look into this from that angle, I think it's also important to understand as an end customer that they have an important role to validate a difference between an apple and a banana. Because today, implementing a product is not relevant. Many customers still going to do this because they believe if I'm going to spend money at least, then I'm going to become more secure. That's only one very, very small element. So we're really following through from technology aspects, from processes aspects, and from technology aspects. We're building the bridge from the technical security point of view to the organizational security point of view, and being able to provide all those services from an analysis, consulting, integration, support, and managed security management point of view. This is really, really unique. You do not have cybersecurity specialists within the region who are really able to provide 360-degree holistic cybersecurity services and solutions coming out of one hand from a trusted partner who is recognized to be one of the largest cybersecurity players around the world.
Interesting. Sorry, dealing with a bit of audio interference, but so basically, maybe this isn't a secure Zoom call. So basically,
it's not me.
It's okay, not me either. So basically, we understand that. I think everyone will understand that the proliferation of internet-based communication and all the macro trends that are happening in a digital transformation world is happening. So is the fact that many trends are coming. So as this regulation is put in place, therefore I can understand why it grew from 2 people to a couple of hundred people to help other companies implement processes that are compliant with the regulation. So I can understand that, but just to understand the role of Help AG, is it a subsidiary with Etisalat, and do you operate independently in terms of that you work? I think you mentioned the finance sector and other sectors. So you will look with government entities, state and semi-state and private entities, and you will provide offering for all of those industries.
I mean, as per the successful journey which we had under Help AG being owned by individual shareholders, at a certain point of time we decided, okay, how can we make sure to further grow the business? How can we make sure to have a better reach into the market? And how can we make sure to become part of an ecosystem which is supporting the technology transformation? Because what we see today, it's you have a cloud topic which is extremely important. You have a data center, you have IoT, you have artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity is pretty much the one thing which should be embedded in any of those projects right from the beginning. You mentioned digital transformation. I think that's a big buzzword which we listen and hearing a lot of. The only thing is, if you have digital transformation and you ask 10 people, you're going to get 11 definitions what is actually the, right? So, but if you're going to go from a transformation process, and if a customer embarking or is on its way already in the digital transformation journey, cybersecurity need to be embedded right from the beginning. And this, of course, is something which we clearly identified, where we were very interested in. Etisalat, we're very interested in acquiring subject matter expertise by having a Help AG, the regional cybersecurity player of choice, as part of their group companies. And accordingly, the transaction has been closed on 17 February last year. So it's fair to say after 15 months, we have been able to showcase to Etisalat and Etisalat Digital, which is the transformation unit, that we're growing the business tremendously. We are outperforming based on any kind of economic number, if you want to look into top line, EBITDA, whatever is required. But even more important is that if you have an integration process in place and an organization like Help AG will be acquired, who becomes part of the group, but still going to be kept outside the entity, to make sure that the agility and the flexibility and the speed which we are able to bring to the table and which is required for our customers and making sure that that's going to remain. I think that was the biggest task which we had in front of us. And after 15 months, I'm really happy to say we have succeeded. We had an 8-month integration process in place based on different kind of workflows. Business was growing. We didn't have any churn in employees, which is also extremely important because in our industry, cybersecurity experts are very, very rare. There's actually a big shortage of cybersecurity resources. It was the opposite. We have been in the position that we had to hire another close to 60 people throughout 2020 only, simply through the demand which we are able to address and the value creating for our clients in the first place.
Wow, yeah, definitely a growth area. Stephan, the role of Etisalat, was it a global acquisition or regional acquisition? And yeah.
So as an organization, we have had legal entities in the UAE and in Saudi Arabia. And of course, that's another good point, you mentioning it, because I mean, Etisalat today is present in 16 countries. So based on a land and expand strategy, as we speak, we're opening already our Egypt establishment. We're looking to expand into other markets within the coming years because it simply makes sense. Cybersecurity is a universal thing. It's required north, east, south, west. And being part of Etisalat and having this exposure into other international markets will definitely make sure that you see Help AG growing very much internationally within the coming years.
So it's a joint venture or it's a regional merger?
No, the acquisition was 100% of the Help AG shares has been acquired by Etisalat.
In this region?
Yes.
Okay, understood. Yeah, it's just good for people to understand how major companies are approaching cybersecurity. And of your team, do you service the telco industry and Etisalat as well as your other clients separately then as well?
So our mandate is very much serving large enterprise and government entities plus ministries within the Middle East, North Africa as a region. So yes, of course, we can always provide added value to Etisalat, who potentially is a sell to customer for us, but this is not our focus. Our focus is the end customers.
Yeah, exactly. Understood. You mentioned something quite interesting there, especially about the requiring new staff. What type of skills are you looking for, and where do you find people, cybersecurity professionals? What have they studied, and can you give a bit of a background into how skilled these people are?
Yeah. So the good thing is, I think coming back to that point, being in the cybersecurity industry today and definitely the next 10 to 20 years, most probably, is the right place to be. Simply because today it depends on what analyst firm you're looking at. We have a shortage of 3.5 million cybersecurity experts worldwide.
Wow. And
if you do your basic thing right, you're going to get a job wherever you want nowadays, which is good. That also means for us, of course, one major point is about taking care of our team. So talent acquisition and even more talent retention, it's always on the top scale of our business. That used to be already the last 15 years, but nowadays it's even more the case. And how you're going to find an employee? Yes, you have nowadays, thankfully, certain kind of academic environments who having a cybersecurity curriculum in place. So we're working actively with universities within the UAE to identify the right talent, right from someone graduating, and we are offering them joining into the team. But at the same time, I think it's also something which is very important to understand that a certificate itself or a diploma, it's not the most important thing to hold in your hand. So one thing which is important for us is having also cybersecurity practitioners who are actually knowing and having the hands-on experience what they are able to deliver as a project, as a service to our customers. And the most important thing on top of that, it's attitude. So people need to understand that this is something they need to be on their toes. And accordingly, I'm very happy also to be on that show, because a few years ago we were saying, okay, we have to identify the millennials. Nowadays, it's all about focusing and finding the Generation C, because this is the workforce of tomorrow, which will actually make a difference. And this is what we also want to make sure to introduce into the company as we're going to move forward. Because even though I'm not going to look like I'm almost 50 years old, right? So I'm more on the pioneer side, and let's say from the strategic point of view, I do understand very well what the company needs to move to, but we need to have a different mindset, and we need to have a different thought process about the millennials and the Generation C joining the organization to actually understand what our customers require in the coming years too.
Interesting. And speaking of, if you're speaking directly to that generation and to those people, if they're doing a type of studies at the moment that has electives and seminars around engineering, or if they're in different areas around software and development, what's the best way for them to get into cybersecurity? How do you get a broad education on cybersecurity? Because I can appreciate that there's lots of different elements. You touched on a few, and there's different sectors. Yeah. What's the best way to sort of advise those people to start their career?
So I have my oldest son. He started university just last September, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to move into physics and mathematics." And he's actually pretty good. Much better than I used to be in the past. Although I don't have any diploma, by the way. So it's really, I'm an entrepreneur, so I can very much understand both sides of the world, which sometimes it's a big benefit. But he decided to go in this direction. And as he started, after 8 months, he said, you know what, Dad, I actually would like to move into computer science. And then I was saying, wow, that's fantastic. Because this is what I truly believe in, because then we talk about a lot of the upcoming topics, right? Where you have machine learning, artificial intelligence, robotics, and so many more things, data analytics on top of it, which I think will be required within the coming years. So it's good to have a foundation going through a computer science curriculum, most probably, and having a good wider understanding in completing it. And then, of course, you always have either you have the job fairs where we're going to be part of it in the past year in the UAE. We'll be having our own stand, introducing the company, and if graduates are interested, they're going to come to us. Or at any point of time, is someone listening to the show and he believes that's something he's interested in to do, just going to reach out to us via social media, website, contact us, and then we are very, very happy to understand what the individual person is interested in.
Interesting. Kind of touching on that and taking that theme into how you might service this new area. We've heard, it's honestly, Stephan, it's mind-boggling. There's so much. The first part of the interview, the questions you mentioned, IoT, Internet of Things and artificial intelligence. Then now we're talking about data analytics, machine learning, robotics. There's just so much. How do you have a subject matter experts in each area? How can someone fully understand the cybersecurity requirements for each of these sort of big developing areas?
Yeah, so there is no one-trick pony. I think it's what you're saying is the right thing to mention, that there is subject matter expertise, and the subject matter expertise is different. If you have someone focusing on governance, risk, and compliance, his experience and his thought process in delivering a successful service is very dedicated around that subject. If you have someone, we have a dedicated team, we call it security analysis. These are the guys, the ethical hackers. They actually doing penetration tests, they doing source code reviews. Their job is actually to compromise our customer infrastructure, from application to systems to mobility, and try to find out where the loopholes are. And then we have an installation unit who's implementing security controls. And then all of this will be managed by our managed security services department. And I can tell you that the guys who does the ethical hacking, they are from the qualification experience and from the personality point of view completely different than the guys who does governance, risk, and compliance.
Interesting.
And I think this is it's important then to have this subject matter expertise, but at the same time being able to build a bridge, because those topics are very much interconnected with each other, right? Because if you have findings from a governance point of view, compliance point of view, or from a penetration testing point of view, of course, these findings based on a risk scoring, you better going to make sure to focus on based on short, mid, and a long-term plan you're going to put in place together with the organization. And having these different kind of resources where we have overlay function in place to make sure to communicate and to translate what it actually means, it's a big benefit for our clients, because that means it's a one-to-one communication. It's not considered to be encrypted. So people are actually understanding what we're talking about in business terms as well in technical terms too.
Interesting. Just something that's popped into my head around the service that you provide and the sectors and the entities that you focus on delivering a high quality product for. But mentioning that huge number, the 3.5 million job shortages globally, I guess a lot of this is related to that cybersecurity is important for every business, whether big, small, across sector. Anecdotally, Stephan, we're a media company, and we had a podcast with another cybersecurity expert recently, and one of the takeaways I had from that was double-factor authentication and what we're doing. And in the last month alone, I can think of tiny little examples of where our cloud-based hosting was compromised, and then also our social networks were compromised. And this isn't, people think of cybersecurity and people think of, cyber attacks and, bad actors and things like that. But actually, it's not, it's just so more prevalent than that, isn't it? It's not an individual going, I want to harm this entity. It's more of, it's just because the internet has grown and all these elements that we've mentioned have grown a lot, that there's just so many things that need to be protected and thought of. So I guess my question is, if you're looking after the big government entities and the big clients, then who's looking after the likes of us or the local restaurant hospitality group? How can they find a subject matter expert or a small someone who caters cybersecurity for SMEs? Do these players exist?
This is another big benefit of working with Etisalat Digital and Help AG, because being a telecommunication provider, of course, there is 100,000 of small, medium businesses are actively working with Etisalat today. And many of these organizations, whether they have 2 employees, 5, 10, 25, having the same fundamental issues if it comes to cybersecurity, like a larger organization. It might be not that prominent because they do not have dedicated teams in place. So for them, it means the managed aspect will become more and more important. And that's actually what we do. Also as part of Etisalat Digital, that we bundling cybersecurity services with connectivity coming from Etisalat. Within the bundle, you buy these kind of organizations. They do have endpoint security. They have a firewall function in place. It's going to be a managed device taken care of by Help AG being the cybersecurity expert of Etisalat. And it's a very successful, proven direction. It has been sold thousands of times, and it's going to continue to be positioned because it takes simply the complexity away from smaller organizations who do not have the time, effort, and resources looking after cybersecurity in specific. Yeah.
Okay, so you do cater to SMEs as well. Okay, interesting.
Maybe let me just mention one more thing, talking about individuals, right? Because we all of us do have, as a consumer, as a private person, have our own online presence, whether it be on a social network, be it on e-banking, having a healthcare application nowadays of the mobile phone, and so on and so on. Of course, even you and I, as an individual, do have a responsibility, and it really starts very, very simple with your passwords. Do you really running unique passwords for each and every unique service you are utilizing? And unfortunately, it's not the case, right? If I talk to my family, to friends going out, they might going to run 5 to 10 different kind of internet-based applications, and they're utilizing the same password for all the applications. And then you ask them, okay, so what kind of password are you going to use? Sometimes that's why I'm having a lot of gray hair, because they are so simple to be cracked. And this is all about awareness. And today, you should have a password longer than 13 characters. Anything else is considered to be insecure.
Okay. Wow.
So, and the excuse is always, it's too difficult to remember all of those. Right? But the moment then you're going to be compromised, and maybe your data, pictures, your credit card information, whatever it's might going to be, being available somewhere where it doesn't belong to, you don't want that to see, especially as we just started to move into the digital age. Because I think you also highlighted the topic of IoT, which is a very big topic within corporates and governments, but it's also a huge topic for anyone who's moving into a new villa, a new apartment, because in the future, everything will be connected somewhere. Your intelligent fridge, your coffee machine, your building management system, your CCTV, and all these kinds of things. And that's another big driver, also depend to whom you're listening to, talk about 40 billion devices connecting somewhere. And all those sensors need to be secured, right? And are we there yet? No. It's a long way to go. Hence, the requirements from a safety security point of view across every aspect within our human life will increase significantly in the coming years.
It's a huge space. I mentioned daunting earlier, but I think a lot of this is the industry moves so fast. These things move so fast. We talk about passwords, and now the facial recognition is becoming stronger and more prevalent, not just on sort of iOS devices. And then often when we talk about cybersecurity, whether it's on the personal level, it's to do with privacy. And then people have different risk appetites, and have different appetites for sharing their personal data. And it's a huge topic. It's a huge topic with the tech giants. It's a huge topic. You mentioned IoT. There's so much to be talked about privacy in the home, whether it's a doorbell that can recognize or things like that, or often there's just so many things to think about. And I guess the question is, what do you think that people need to sort of understand more around what's available and the perceived risk? I think do you have a kind of, you mentioned the 13 character, but do you have what is the one thing, whether it's personal information, what are the things that we really shouldn't reveal that can be a threat, and what are the things that it doesn't really matter if our name is out there, sort of thing? And how can we protect ourselves as all these devices get connected?
Yeah. It's all around your identity, right? Whether you're going to be a private or a business user, that's something you shouldn't reveal to anyone who is asking for it, right? I think it's also, the thing is, sometimes, especially over the last few years, of course, everybody becomes much more aware due to the internet, to the news, which will be highlighted, another breach here, another breach there. And that's going to continue. It's not going to stop. I think people need to understand two things. First one is that the cybersecurity culture, it's one of the most important aspects which enterprise and organizations and the government need to establish, because it used to be not that far away. Exactly. The situation where an organization, when an employee were reporting a security incident, has been penalized, right? And that's the wrong thing to do. Why? Because I think we need to move into establishing a cybersecurity culture where we actually reward people who are responding to cybersecurity incidents, because they're meant to happen. It's not going to change. Organizations, private person, everyone shouldn't be aware of being breached or compromised in the future. Most of us either already have been breached or will be breached in the future. The more important question is how to respond to it. And if you have an breach within an organization, of course, you're better going to make sure that you focus on bringing up your services, the availability of the service. You have a business impact, you have a reputational impact. All these kind of things can be mitigated by having a very, very strong incident response methodology in place. And this is what we're pretty much focusing on. It used to be prevention, and then we moved into detection, and then nowadays I think it's fair to say that it's all about the monitoring aspect, visibility aspect, in utilizing the data, historical data, to predict what happens tomorrow, and at the same time to make sure that this is going to happen in a phased approach, because resources are not going to be that much available. So hence you need to rely on an organization who has, again, the capability and the capacity to take care of these kind of concerns. I think the last statistic I read is about how many different malware variants are we going to see every day. We talk about 120,000 new malware variants coming out again and again.
Can you explain what are they, malware variants?
Malware variants, it's either new viruses, it's new ransomware, it's changed bad code which will resurface somewhere else. So it's continuously in the process, and also you are living in an environment where we usually always are going to be one step behind, and just going to make sure to increase the security posture, make it more difficult. We're going to get hacked or breached by someone else. And I think that's the most important thing. And then if you look into the bad guys, there are also different kind of groups, right? It used to be script kiddies who, based on pictures maybe we have seen 10, 15 years ago, sitting in a room without windows, with a hoodie on top of it, and they trying to do bad things. Yeah, they do exist, but it's that's something which is only a small part of it, right? We talk about nowadays nation-sponsored cybersecurity attacks. We talk about the possibility to purchase randomware on the internet, which you can utilize against your neighbor if you want to do so, or against your competitor. So it became a multi-billion-dollar business where it has been actually commercialized from the dark side of the internet. And I think that's something which also need to be understood. And our main responsibility is simply going to make sure to maintain and continuously improve the security posture and the security layers and the security within organizations moving forward.
Yeah, it's interesting you from that respect when we talk about the dark web, and then we can talk about deep fakes and just the threats that are out there and the protection that's been put in place, but also recognizing that a globally connected world is good for progress, is good for economic prosperity of nations as well. So it's about finding that balance, I guess. Yeah. Stephan, for the pandemic, I'm just interested to see your take on what's happened and how you would summarize how companies have dealt in the last 12 months, particularly with respect to the ideal of putting cybersecurity from the ground up in place in organizations. And when things have moved so fast, we're having a call on Zoom at the moment. And I know 12 months ago that if someone had this link, they could have jumped onto this chat. But now we have the admit button, and that's new. And that's something I didn't put in place. It's something that the provider recognized. So do you see a lot of that as well, that like the providers are also upping their game on cybersecurity, and that ultimately the whole ecosystem of our businesses are notching up a level. Is that what you've experienced in the last 12 months?
So the IT, let's call it IT security, which we were talking about 5 to 10 years ago, used to be seen as a hindrance. It wasn't contributing to the business.
And slow things down as well.
These were always considered to be the guys who make things complicated, which are not going to allow fast go-to-market, and so on and so on. And I think what many organizations around the globe, including ourselves, were contributing to is making the organizations understand that cybersecurity is a business enabler. And what you just mentioned by adding a feature or functionality to a chatting application or to the Zoom application, that's the logical consequence out of it, right? People also need to understand that whatever happens is, or many things what happening is for to create a better good. It's not like, I mean, seeing that the whole world, because of COVID-19 global pandemic, moves to working from home. You know, this was something, especially in that part of the world, you would have asked anyone end of 2019, beginning of 2020, that all of a sudden everyone is working from home. People would have laughed at you, right? But it happened because there was no other way. It needed to be done. And we were exactly in the same situation in Help AG or Etisalat as an organization who had to do this. And we did it very successfully in a very smooth way. And that's what's happened to many organizations. Yes, we do agree that if you have to do it in a very short time frame, then some of the basics you eventually haven't taken care of. And this is where the moment the service is up and running, you have to go back. You have to cross-check, you have to do your assessment, you need to see if all the features, the functions, the configuration has been applied from a security point of view. And this will then going to make sure that the new service allowing you accessing application from home, whether it's the government, whether it's a financial institution, whether it's anything related to e-learning or telemedicine, right? All of a sudden, we have seen a huge success, people adapting it, and countries, government adapting it so much faster. So is it going to be something which we're going to go back to? If you ask me personally, no, we're going to continue to see a working from home schema. We're going to make sure that whatever under the big concept of professional mobility will be done in the most secure way possible. But then at the same time, I also would like to see maybe out of 5 days a week to have 1 or 2 days going back to the office from a social point of view, because that's at the end also something which you cannot quantify, but it's extremely important, I think, especially for the current generation, to still going to have the human touch combined with a human-centric cybersecurity approach.
Interesting. It's interesting how the narrative evolves in terms of the work from home versus the ability to use lots to communicate and to it's as you mentioned, it's fascinating where we are now versus where we thought we would ever be in this sort of environment, and who knows how things will change. But yeah, it's good to get your perspective on that. On sort of what are the types of questions you would advise companies to ask when they're looking for vendors or providers? You know, there's so much, I don't want to say myths, but there's so many things out there about whether things are private or not. How can someone know what's encrypted, what isn't, and you know what's important? What's important in identity versus being retargeted for advertising, which I guess isn't a major threat. It's just a cost of free services. But what are the sort of questions that companies can ask when they're looking for? And if we're talking, I know there's lots of areas, but if we're talking about internal SaaS procurement for businesses, what are the sort of things that people can ask?
I think, it's like if you look today, organizations, businesses will continue to have different kind of requirements, right? It's driven by the pain points which they're going to have in either are going to fulfill their their targets from a top line point of view, from a profitability point of view, by launching new products, new services to the customer, whether it's business to business, business to consumer, or government to citizen, vice versa. And I think if you're going to look into the whole scenario, an end customer today, what's the responsibility from their end to decide with whom they're gonna work with if they have a strategic initiative? It's simply following by, as per my understanding, it's technical aspects, it's organizational aspects, and definitely also commercial aspects, right? And if you do a thorough analysis based on the parameters which are important to deliver a successful project, then an organization should be in a position to decide: am I gonna be good enough in safe hands with a generalist, or do I need to have a specialist looking into something which is maybe considered to be a higher confidential or more important from a protection point of view. The other thing, and another big topic, is of course all of us are part of a big, much larger ecosystem. So one big thing which will become more and more important to look at is the supply chain cybersecurity aspect. So where you're going to buy a mobile phone, you're going to have a software running in your data center somewhere in the cloud. So how can you make sure that whatever you're going to supply as a application, as a system, as a hardware, as a license, is actually secure? Which it's a very, very big problem, because at the moment it doesn't really exist. And this is where we talk about the trust aspect, where supplier of software applications, of network, actually need to kind of come up with a concept where they're going to make sure that whatever they're going to provide to the end customers has been done in a secure way without having a backdoor implemented. Right? There's a lot of controversial discussions, and you see a lot of end customers from a technology point of view, but also from a procurement point of view, starting to address that specific field, which will be the next big wave, where at the end, everyone who is sitting in the boat are going to be interconnected. I would even say handcuffed to each other, because it will become a shared responsibility end to end from a cybersecurity.
Yeah, and also I guess there's levels of security, isn't there? You know, from in internet infrastructure, there's the HTTP, there's HTTPS, and then there's different layers, and it's about education and knowledge and knowing what levels of security is available. I think interesting to get your views on sort of reputations of companies in terms of whether they're providing secure services or not. You know, when there's a data breach, do you think and we don't need to mention examples, but do you think that sometimes the breach isn't necessarily by negligence, it's just a result of the pace of change? And you know, what's your, when you see big stories break about breaches, what's your sort of view on that? Is it case by case situation, or do you think that providers need to be doing more?
Also there, you know, I think we should have a very mature approach. I think that someone is going to get breached, that's not a question anymore. It's going to happen. If you want to be breached, you need to be very transparent. You know, we have even large cybersecurity technology companies have been breached multiple times over the last 5 years. You know, quarter after quarter, you see a cybersecurity company who has all the know-how, who has all the ingredients and the resources working for them. Their DNA is entirely on cybersecurity, and even those organizations, unfortunately, have been breached. And I think where you then going to distinguish is how these organizations are actually communicating it. And communication is extremely important, because if this is happening, be as transparent as possible and announce it to your customers, announce it to your business partners, make it publicly available, and do not try to put it under the carpet or behind the curtain. It's not going to help. And organizations, and we had a recent one, an organization which has been breached, listed on the Nasdaq, on a stock exchange, when they got breached, their share price lost a certain value.
Yeah.
But the way how they actually mitigated it by proactively communicating, the share price almost doubled, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
And this is the trust factor which they're going to give back to the ecosystem, which we are going to be part of it. Because yes, it will happen. No worries. We will respond to it, and we're going to make sure to mitigate whatever is required, whether from a reputational point of view, nor from a business impact point of view.
So interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. As you're saying, putting that process in place, and one of them is effective communications and being agile, because this stuff is just going to continue.
Absolutely.
I have two final questions. I'm not sure what order to go in, but if we just finish with the regional and your outlook, and firstly, just talk about sort of budget and planning, and how you think, rather than not necessarily how you think companies should, but what trends do you see in terms of where the budget and investment goes in businesses? Are they seeing this? You mentioned people are discussing it at a board level. Is it from an IT department? If I'm a company and I'm hiring a head of cybersecurity, where do I put that? Is this a new function? Is it a new role? How do finance and accountants and forecasters start creating this line item and this pot of money that people can put towards their cybersecurity efforts?
Yeah. So the question is, okay, what should they focus on? So if you have a cyber information security officer who is taking care of the cybersecurity aspects, there are different kind of pillars which he definitely going to look at. It has to be governance, risk and compliance. So that's something where he's going to make sure that the framework which already has been hopefully applied will be stringently followed and maintained and improved as they go. And then you have, of course, other technology elements which definitely we see happening in the market. So the two major ones I would say is on one hand, organizations shifting to next generation platforms. So next generation platform means, whereas today, let's say a retail company is running 25, 35 different security controls, whether it's hardware, software, virtual, on-prem or in the cloud. It needs to be consolidated into a next generation platform, simply from a manageability point of view, because we will not have the manpower, the intellectual understanding in running a large infrastructure without having enough resources at hand. The second one is by doing this, organization will shift into identify managed security services provider who will take care from an MDR approach, that's detection response approach, doing 24/7 security monitoring and incident response services, 7 days a week, whether it's public holiday, in the morning, in the evening, throughout the year. And usually there you're going to build use cases who have risk profile. And whenever there is an incident happening, of course, the provider of choice will make sure that the impact will be minimized. And this, both of them are actually going hand in hand, and will be combined from an automation point of view, because the whole industry is very clear that whatever we see at the moment cannot be mastered with pure manpower to throw at. It needs to be automated. And automation orchestration, again, will feed directly into the response aspect, as discussed before. And this will make sure that the security posture, by choosing the right partner, eventually, a company like HelpAG will increase. And the spending for the service itself will be very much predictable, because that's the next big issue, right? Organizations who used to believe, yeah, we are good. The moment they're going to get breached, they want to fix everything now. And it's not going to work like that. It has to be a phased approach. You have to have different kind of initiatives to increase the security posture over time. And that's a journey. And we, of course, are there to help and to assist as much as we can.
Yeah, wow, interesting. So much. Every time I delve into this topic, I just realize how vast it is. but thank you for explaining this in different ways and making it clear for us. Stephan, finally, I want to just talk about how optimistic or what your outlook is for the Middle East as an emerging market. Personally for the business, in terms of the partnerships, and you mentioned countries that you might look at, but also in specific to the industry. We've seen what will it take for this region in your sector to be seen as global thought leaders. We've seen huge, every day there's new plans being put in place from this emirate, from the Dubai emirate and the government in terms of blockchain, the future plans. We've seen very exciting announcements come out of Abu Dhabi in terms of quantum computing. What do you think? Do you think these are headlines? Do you think that this region will gain global recognition? And what's your personal outlook over the next, say, decade, to put a time frame on it?
Personally, I'm a very, very positive person. So, I mean, if we're going to look into specifically the cybersecurity industry, it's going to continue to grow very, very much. Also there, if you take IDC, if you take Gartner, some of the big analyst firms, specifically in the region, they foresee until 2025, the market will grow minimum 7 to 8% year on year. That's a big number if you can expect that maybe the whole economy will grow between 1 to 3% moving forward. But that's something positive, and I can only encourage everyone again, if he has the opportunity, try to understand more a little bit about the cybersecurity market, and it's going to help the people. The other aspect is, and I think that's where we are in a very, very good position, just to take the UAE as an example. They're always having a very interesting thought leadership. So we have a minister for happiness, but we also have a minister for artificial intelligence, right? Last year we had a big announcement that the Cybersecurity Council has been established, who's taking care from a cybersecurity point of view for the UAE as a country. There are major initiatives coming from Abu Dhabi government, from Dubai government, where they have their dedicated authorities, and this will make sure that this topic will going to continue to become more and more mature. And as I mentioned, maturity, that's extremely important. It's about maturing and trying to understand that if things are happening, it's always for something to look at and to make it better. Sharing means caring. This is one of the big things. It didn't exist 5 years ago. Now we see a lot of interesting programs where we are also part of it under the umbrella of public-private partnerships, where we actually working together with the government and regulators in putting threat intelligence platforms in place, where a regulator can ask their member firms to subscribe to, and going to get a big benefit about cybersecurity, easily speaking, as a nutshell. And these kind of things need to continue, and they will continue because it has been understood that it's need to be based on collaboration. So also this gives me a lot of very positive thinking about the coming years from the cybersecurity industry point of view. Business-wise, yes, I think as much as we were able to grow the business significantly in 2020, we foresee exactly the same happening the coming years. We do understand that there are certain industries heavily impacted due to the global pandemic, and accordingly we need to help those organizations also not to fall in a trap and not continue to invest into cybersecurity. And this is where we put very efficient programs in place, where it's either be deferred payments, we help in moving from capex to opex, installment-based strategic investment, where they can pay over 5 years in monthly installment if required. This is also to make sure to take the burden away from the difficult economic situations some of our customers are facing at the moment. And as we are in this great position as Etisalat Digital to offer all those services, cybersecurity in the first place, but all the other things like secure cloud enablement and data center and IoT and AI and data analytics, That's a full-fledged umbrella where customers will find a lot of value. And if you're going to continue to create value and do the basics right, I think all of us should be in a good place.
Fascinating. Good positive note. Well, I do hope that some of those jobs are created in the UAE and KSA and other markets that you enter in as well. And it's great to see that there's a strong player like Help AG in the region, and then there's strong collaborations in place. I think, Stephan, we will need you on again in the future when the next trend emerges, because I just can't keep up at the moment. But thank you very much for your time today. Pleasure talking to you, and wish you well, and hopefully we meet in person in the future.
Yes, we will. Thank you so much. All the best, and Ramadan Kareem.
Hey guys, I'm Richard Fitzgerald. This is Dubai Works, where we interview the business leaders making a difference in this great city.
That business with scale mobility was very interesting to me.
I like building something that has legacy.